Welcome everyone, my name is Rigel and welcome to the second episode of my series Rigel's Random Reports. Now, you might be able to tell that it's not really random just yet because I'm still recording and posting these at the end of the month, but it might get more erratic later on, I wouldn't really know. But what I do know is that this video is going to be covering everything related to Eurovision 2025 as of effectively January. Basically, I'm going to be covering all the content that's been happening in the Eurovision world since I last made an episode, which of course was the first episode. So in this episode, there's going to be a dedicated section to deal with all these different changes that have happened since then. So we've got a lot to cover. Let's get right into it. Let's start by talking about some basic information that we need to know about the contest. First off, the host country is obviously going to be Switzerland because Switzerland won Eurovision 2024. The host city is going to be Basel. I understand there's multiple pronunciations, but I say Basel. And the host arena is going to be the St. Jakobshalle. Now, these two things, or I guess three things, have already been known since last month. I reported on them in my last episode, but here's some new content. We've gotten the hosts, or the presenters, for Eurovision 2025. First off, for all three shows, we will have Hazel Brugger and also Sandra Stüder. Now, Hazel Brugger, and yes, that's how you pronounce it because she was born in America, I believe. But yeah, Hazel Brugger is a comedian who was born in America but now primarily works between Switzerland and Germany, I think. And then Sandra Stüder is actually was actually the representative for Switzerland in Eurovision 1991. So these two will be presenting all three shows, but for the final, we will also have Michelle Hunziker, which is a Swiss-Italian TV host. So these three ladies will be presenting the show for Eurovision 2025. But they're not the only people who will be doing presenting, because we will also have Sven Epinay and Melanie Fremont, who will be presenting the show at Arena Plus. Now, what's Arena Plus, you might ask? Well, essentially, it's a new scheme that they've come up with to allow more people to experience a kind of arena vibe, even though they might not be able to get tickets, for example. So in this case, they've actually found a massive football stadium in Basel, I think, where they're going to be screening the contest live as well. I think in addition to the Eurovision Village, I'm not actually sure. But yeah, the Arena Plus is going to be a thing in a football stadium where they're going to be screening the show live, which includes apparently a pre-show where Baby Lasagna and a few others are going to perform. So that's going to be interesting. And the 12 points from the Swiss jury are actually going to be presented from Arena Plus as well, from Sven Epinay and Melanie Fremont. Now, if you're thinking the name Sven Epinay sounds familiar, that's because Sven is actually the longtime Swiss-German commentator for Eurovision. So, yeah, in this case, I think he'll be fulfilling both duties. But yeah, we will have this new thing called Arena Plus, which is really interesting. We will also have another new thing, which they call the first ever Eurovision mascot, which is interesting because after seeing this, a lot of people immediately pointed out that Yugoslavia 1991 also had a mascot of sorts, and various contests since have also had something like that. Most recently, actually, in 2022 with Armenia and Junior Eurovision. So, hopefully, the mascot in this case will be more creative than a robot that doesn't really do anything, but we'll just have to see what happens. And speaking of seeing what happens, let's take a look at what's happened since the last episode that I made. And this is the new section that I'm adding to these videos, which is where I'm going to take a look at all of the upcoming events that I listed in the last episode, and I'll take a look at each one of them and see how they turned out. And after that, I'll also cover other events that have happened in the month that I didn't necessarily list in my upcoming events list in the previous episode, so let's take a look. First off, we had the Estilal wildcard. Now, that ended in Marta-Lotta with the song Tansinvel ending up in the final. There's not really much to say about this. Some people disputed the results, but no one really cared in the end, and no one really cares about the song. It's not a big favorite. The big favorite is still Tommy Cash. So let's move on to UMK from Finland, where we had the artist reveal. Now, we had initially 7 names in the national final, including none other than Erika Wikman, who, of course, was so famous for her song Chicholina back in 2020. But obviously, she did not end up winning UMK, but this time she is back and she is determined to go to Eurovision, and I think the broadcaster is also trying to help her do that as well. But there are some pretty interesting songs in there. Actually, just today I discovered the song called Made Of by Goldilocks, spelled spelled usually as you would spell Goldilocks, but instead of I is IE. But yeah, that song is a massive bop in my opinion. But yeah, initially there were 7 acts. However, one of them, a band called One Morning Left, were actually disqualified after certain unsavory accusations were made against one of the band members. So the band and the Finnish broadcaster talked about it, and basically they decided they were going to just drop out. And actually the band announced that they were just going to disband immediately because apparently the other band members had not known of these allegations. So yeah, it's good to see that they're taking it seriously, but back to UMK for a second. One Morning Left were actually considered one of the main competitors to Erika Wikman because it was a kind of metal adjacent song, and the Finns love their metal. So yeah, with that gone, there's pretty much nothing in the way of Erika Wikman just bulldozing the contest. Even more so considering they later released a running order and Erika Wikman is closing the show. So yeah, congratulations to Erika Wikman, who will be representing Finland in Eurovision 2025. So before I move on to Poland, I'm going to talk very, very quickly about Eurowizja Daskas LT. I did not include it here because, well, there's 2 reasons actually. The first one is that I didn't have enough space, and the second kind of ties into the first, but basically there's really not that much exciting stuff happening. There's no like winner potential or anything like that. Even with some of the newer songs, which are considered stronger. Like just today, we had the song Tavo Akis from the band called Catharsis, who I think will be in the upcoming heats. And I'm pretty sure they will make it to the final, but even that, like, it's a great song, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's still pretty far from like winner conversation. So yeah, I would say the winner's probably between Catharsis, Petunia, and maybe 1 or 2 others. I'm not really sure, but I would say these 2 are like the big favorites to win. We'll just have to see what happens though. But yeah, I would say the national selection this year is not particularly exciting, even though they moved to the massive Žalgirio Arena in Kaunas, which is the largest arena in the entire country, and I would say the entire Baltic region actually. But yeah, not very exciting, the national final from Lithuania. So from Lithuania, let's move to their neighbor, which is Poland. They revealed their artists for the national final, and I think there's three things to talk about first. The first one is Sarah James. Yes, the Polish representative for Junior Eurovision 2021 has now turned 18 years old and decided that she wants to represent Poland in Eurovision proper. However, according to local media, um, she was being forced to sing a song that she didn't really like, and she wanted to enter with a song that she did like. However, that didn't happen, and so she decided to just drop out of the entire thing. And hopefully, we'll see her back one day with a song that she actually enjoys. But we'll just have to see whether that happens in the near future. For now, I would say there's two main things that people are talking about, or two main artists that people are talking about. The first one is Justina. Yes, the same one from last year and the same one from, gosh, what, 1995? I think, yeah, 1995. I can tell you that because if she wins the national selection, she's actually going to be performing in the semifinal exactly 30 years later to the day. As she did the first time in 1995. But anyways, yeah, she was in the national final last year as well, but she lost out, I think, in the tiebreaker to Luna. But this year she's back, and I would say she doesn't really have much competition. She's got a song called Gaia. I haven't listened to it. Some people called it kind of underwhelming, but it also got a revamp recently, and people massively liked it a lot more. So, yeah, I would say that's a pretty big favor to win the national selection. And there's another artist that people are talking about, which is a duo named Svada and Nichos. Now, this is a very interesting one because I actually did an entire Twitter thread about them, or rather about the language that Nichos speaks, which is Potlakian. The technical term is a microlanguage, but in essence, Potlakian is a sort of mix of Belarusian and Ukrainian. It's not completely that. It's got its own like kind of innovations, let's just say, plus loan words from Polish as well. So yeah, the song itself, I would say, is a little too repetitive for my taste, if I'm being honest. But the language is interesting, and if it does win, it will be and if Ukraine also sends a song in Ukrainian, which surprisingly might not be that likely right now, but if Ukraine does send a song in Ukrainian, then we would, for the first time since 2021, have two songs in East Slavic languages. But yeah, if you're interested, hopefully I remember to put my Twitter thread in the description, and you can go and read about Potlakian and kind of the wider conversation about what makes an East Slavic language East Slavic as opposed to West Slavic, and why it's definitely not a dialect of Polish. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to MGP, the national final for Norway, where they also had their artist reveal. And we have, I would say, two interesting names. The first one is Bobby Sox. Yes, the duo that represented Norway in Eurovision 1985 and brought them their first victory with the song La de Swinge. They're back now with a much less interesting pop song, I would say, but they are nonetheless back in the competition. And then we also have Kyle Alessandro. Now, you might not recognize that name, nor do I, to be honest, but he is apparently one of the members of Umami Tsunami from last year, and his song has been compared to Zari, of all things. So that's interesting, but no one's particularly enthusiastic about Norway this year. Some people are even saying Norway might non-qualify in the semifinals, which is kind of terrifying, but we'll just have to see what happens. Some people also suspected that this drop in quality in the national final and also the drop in the size of it is because Norway is actually one of the more pro-Palestine countries in Europe, and I think a lot of artists are just boycotting Eurovision over this, and even the head of delegation has said that it's been difficult to find artists for MGP, and it doesn't help either that they had two withdrawals from the national final, one of which had to do it because she actually lived in LA and her house was affected by the big fires there. So yeah, the theme of withdrawals is something that I'm going to come back to later on in the video, but for now, just know that the standard of the songs in MGP isn't particularly high according to Eurofans. So with that said, let's move on to Söngvakeppnin in Iceland. Where we, as usual, have 10 songs. However, this time they've removed the whole thing of super finals and also wild cards. So essentially, there's just going to be two qualifiers from each semifinal, and then whoever wins the votes in the final wins. There's not going to be a super final. So we all welcome a more straightforward voting system. But in terms of the names participating, we did not get Bashar Murad. We didn't get most of the names that were recognizable from the previous years, really. I suspect this also has to do with Icelandic musicians boycotting Eurovision. I'm not really sure. But we do have one name in there that is recognizable, and that's Vibe, which you might remember last year with the song Biomind, or I think the English name of the song was like Movie or something like that. But yeah, I remember the song as Biomind because that's the fan cam that I watched all the time. But yeah, Vibe are back with a new song. I think it's called Roan or something like that, or Road. I can't remember. RO with an acute accent and then one letter that I can't remember. But yeah, they are back, and their song is the most streamed right now amongst all of the songs, and they actually this time did not bring an English version, so they know what their audience likes, and I would say they're actually pretty likely to win the national final, although I'm not from Iceland, so we'll just have to see how the Icelanders vote on the night. So after that, we had the reveal of the songs from Belgium with their national final called Eurosong. Now, I would say there's really only two, or yeah, I would say there's only two that like everyone is talking about, and those are Red Sebastian and Montisa. The general sense is that all of the songs were underwhelming, to be honest, and that they definitely don't deserve the number one in the odds they still continue to occupy, although something in me suggests that they're still there solely to prevent Israel from becoming first place, but that's just my speculation. But yeah, the two that most people are talking about are Red Sebastian and Montisa, and again, the sense is that everything is underwhelming, and certainly nothing in there that's really screaming like Eurovision winning material. Nonetheless, the national final is coming up very, very soon, as we'll find out in the What's Next section. Now from Belgium, we're not going very far, we're going to Luxembourg, where they had the final of their national final, the Luxembourg Song Contest. Now, Lara Thorne has always been a kind of favorite with her song La Poupée Monte Son, and sure enough, she did win the national final. She got 12 from every single international jury except I think Estonia. But yeah, I'm just remembering tweets about people being angry at the Estonian jury, but yeah, she got 12 from every single jury except Estonia, and also got, I think, second in the televote behind this band that ended up like fourth overall, so no one knows why they got such a popular vote. But yeah, Lara Thorne with her song La Poupée Monte Son has now won the national final, and for the first time in, well, actually not that long, their song last year was in French as well, but they will be bringing another song talking about puppets for the first time since I can't remember the last one. I'm sorry, but yeah, they're bringing a French song to to Eurovision this year, and we'll see how well that does. But those were just the events that I remembered to put on my What's Next section in the previous episode. There's a lot of other stuff that happened that I couldn't really anticipate, so let's quickly go through those because there is a lot to go through here. Starting with Malta, they released their songs for the national final, and I titled the showdown as Cantera versus Kant because I didn't invent that, by the way. Someone on Twitter coined the phrase, but essentially, Cantera are one of the artists in the national final. They're a kind of folk band type thing. And I would say they're actually pretty popular in Malta, from my understanding. So their songs are pretty folksy, pretty fun. So maybe they could represent Malta with their song that has a really, really long name. But on the other side, we also have the song Kant. The song is called Kant this time, not the artist. The artist is actually called Miriana Conte. But the title of the song is genius because it references three things. First off, it references the philosopher Immanuel Kant, who I believe was born in Königsberg, modern day Kaliningrad. That's the first reference. The second reference is that in the song she sings serving Kant, which, if you know, you know. It sounds very similar to a certain other thing. And thirdly, Kant as a word in Maltese means singing. So there are three layers to this pun, and it's just kind of crazy. And it's also been sort of going viral or semi-viral in certain places at least. But we'll just have to see what happens. But I would say these two, at this point in time, are the most likely to win the national final. We'll just have to see what happens. Moving on from Malta, we have Greece, who also revealed their national final artists, and sure enough, we had Evangelia, and we also had Claudia and Barbs, as well as 9 others that I can't remember the name of. But I would say these three are kind of the ones with the most hype surrounding them, I would say. And I'm actually going to come back to that because I'm recording this on the 30th, which is the night that the national final is actually happening. So let's move on to Ukraine, where we had the reveal of the wild card, and that went to Fiinka, who was actually also in the national final last year without a wild card, by the way. But yeah, this time she had to enter the national final via wild card, and people in Ukraine, they voted for Fiinka, although there was another fan favorite called Grisana, who I'm gonna get back to later on. From Ukraine, we move to their neighbor, which is Moldova, where we have some very dramatic news, is that they are withdrawing from the contest. Essentially, in a statement they just put out, they said that basically the songs just aren't good enough, and so they think it's not worth it to continue on with the contest, so they decided to, unfortunately, withdraw from the contest. So, yeah. I think it's partly that, and also partly because everything is expensive. However, even though the big favorites of the selection told the broadcaster that they did manage to get a sponsor, they were ignored, and so Moldova remains out of the contest, and we will go back down to 37 countries instead of 38, which seems to be a little curse in and of itself, because we've never had 38 countries in the contest before. We've had 37, we've had 39, we've had 40, but never 38. But this time, the 37, instead of just being the same, we're basically swapping out Moldova for Montenegro. So yeah, it's unfortunate. We really hope Moldova doesn't stay out of the contest, and we also hope that the EBU does something to make the contest a bit more affordable for different countries involved. So we'll just have to see what happens there. But from there, let's move on to Eurosong. We had the reveal of the songs and the artists for the Eurosong in Ireland, and I would say there's 3 names I want to talk about. I wouldn't say they're all favorites, but there's 3 names I want to talk about. The first one is Samantha Mumba, who is apparently really, really famous in Ireland and apparently in the UK as well. People speculate that she was the artist that was invited to the national final, but I would say, in terms of actual favorites, people are probably going between Bobby Arlo and also Railta. However, there's allegedly some drama with Railta, who I've been told has been talking smack about other competitors in the national final, and also actually signed a petition for Bambi Thug last year to not go to Eurovision, only to this year sign up for the national finals. So yeah, there's some drama with Railta, but other than that, Railta still remains a favorite in terms of the song quality and such, and Bobby Arlo as well, who's actually been very active on Twitter, and just today she tweeted that she got like a cold or something and she can't even breathe, let alone sing. So let's hope she gets well enough before the national final happens. So yeah, that's Ireland. And some people have said that the national final in Ireland this year is actually one of the better ones, because some of the other national finals, hint, hint, Norway, have been kind of underwhelming. So from there, let's move on to the next event, which was that we got the songs from Festival da Canção, which is the Portuguese national final. And I would say there's multiple favorites there. I would say the two favorites. Actually, there's one more that I haven't written at the time of recording, but you will see on the slide. But the two favorites that I have written right now are Lisboa and also a song called I Wanna Destroy You. Yes, you spelled as the letter and not Y-O-U. But Lisboa, obviously that means Lisbon. But ironically, the song is being sung by an artist named Capital da Bulgaria, which translates to the capital of Bulgaria, of course, because her name is actually Sofia. But yeah, the song, the artist's name is kind of funny, but the song is actually pretty gorgeous. And I Wanna Destroy You is another very interesting one as well. Because it's, well, first off, it's in English, because that's practically unheard of in Festival da Canção. But it's also a metal song in Festival da Canção, which you might, associate with more traditional, slower kind of songs that you might hear, like stereotypically Portuguese stuff. But this is a kind of metalcore song in English that just breaks all of those stereotypes. So this could be something really interesting as well. And the third one that I'm going to include in the slide, the artist name is Josh. However, I can't really. Oh yeah, I can remember it now. Their song, his song probably. His song is called Tristeza or Tristeza, which means sadness, I think. And I've heard a bit of it, and it sounds really interesting. But yeah, I would say these three are the favorites at the moment: Lisboa, I Want to Destroy You, and also Tristeza. So let's to see what happens, but I would say the quality of Festival da Canção, from what I have heard, is pretty good. So yeah, from there we go to Cyprus, where they revealed the songwriters for their song, which I'm actually not going to talk about here because I've still got that confirmed entry section, and I'm going to talk about it there. And yeah, so from there, let's move on to Serbia, where they released their songs for the national final Pesma za Eurovision. And honestly, I'm not sure there's much to talk about there. I would say there's two songs that are kind of going viral, and one of them is called Turbo Jurka. But other than that, I don't think anyone's going particularly crazy over the songs. The graphics of the national final are trash, and possibly even AI generated. But yeah, nothing particularly crazy about the national final this year. Nothing like winner material. So yeah, in general, I would say just a lot of national finals this year have just been kind of underwhelming. So yeah, speaking of underwhelming national finals, Benidorm Fest last night, I would say. I can't actually remember. Was it last night or the night before then? I'm not sure. But we had the first semifinal of Benidorm Fest. The big favorite, which was La Gispa, actually sort of flopped. I think in the press poll she came 5th out of 8. And in the end, she did actually qualify, but we don't know by how much, although she did qualify in both the jury and the televote. But a lot of people were critiquing like her vocals, and the staging also kind of didn't make sense to them. But we have to see whether and how that might improve in the final. But for the time being, I believe either tonight or tomorrow we might have the second semifinal for Benidorm Fest, so we'll have to see what happens there. And in the meantime, other than La Gispa, we also had the qualification of Lucas Boon and also Daniela, I can't remember her surname, and one more artist that I just can't remember at all. So yeah, that was Benidorm Fest. And also, after that, we also had the ticket sales for Eurovision 2025, which happened yesterday. And as of recording, they have also opened the ticket sales for Arena Plus. So, yeah, we'll have to see whether people get those, and maybe it'll probably fill up not as quickly as the actual Eurovision tickets do, but I'm pretty sure they won't be broadcasting the jury show or whatever, so there's still gonna be fewer tickets overall. Maybe, I don't really know, but the Arena Plus ticket sales are happening a day after the ticket sales for Eurovision itself proper. So after that, we also got the semifinalists for the first two semifinals for San Marino. Now, this is kind of insane because how do I put it? There are 36 semifinalists in each semifinal, and these are just the first two semifinals, which means there are already 72 singers or artists, however you want to refer to them, and there's going to be 5 semifinals total. So there's going to be a lot of people singing, and I don't know who can be bothered to rank all of these except for like crazy Euro fans. But among them we do have one interesting name, and that is Carson Coma. Now, if you followed fan contests in the 2010s, the late 2010s, you would know that Carson Coma is a very frequent name to come up there because I don't know, they've got, I think, a very interesting kind of discography, and people have been wanting them to go to Eurovision for Hungary for a long time, but obviously Hungary isn't here. But this year, Carson Coma actually decided to apply for San Marino, so that could be really interesting. And another name, actually two other names that applied are Bessa. Yes, the Bessa from Albania. I'm not sure why she's trying again, even though she literally already went to Eurovision. But that's one of the names that applied that hasn't yet shown up in the semifinals, although I suspect she will. And another one that applied is Grisana from Ukraine. And people were like, basically, after she lost the wild card in Ukraine, she was asking people what to do, and a lot of fans were telling her go to San Marino, and sure enough, she did. And this could be beneficial later as we get into the allocation draw, but Grisana is another name that applied for the national final in San Marino with her song called Kohani. And finally, just this morning, Austria revealed their artist for Eurovision 2025. I'm not going to talk about it here though, I'll talk about it in my current confirmed entries section, as I always do. Now, one of the most important things that happened for Eurovision 2025 was definitely the semi-final draw, or the allocation draw. Now, there's a lot of stuff you can read out of these, and you can read these all day, but the first thing that I noticed was definitely Cyprus and Greece being separated, so they now can't give each other 12 points. And Armenia and Azerbaijan are also separated, so they can't give each other 0 points. And people have run entire analyses on these, the Twitter user Dolphin Dane has found that the biggest winners are actually Poland, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Sweden, and Albania. And in my very amateur opinion, I would argue that Ireland and Armenia are also pretty big winners. Especially with Ireland, they've got the UK and Australia voting for them, whereas Armenia has Greece and also other countries that are more likely to vote for them, like Georgia, for example. Um, so I would say Ireland. Gosh, I went into a proper Irish accent there, but yeah, Ireland and Armenia are pretty big winners as well, in my opinion. But Dolphin Dane also said that the losers were Montenegro, Finland, Cyprus, Estonia, and Denmark. Um, I would like to note very quickly, I laughed at Montenegro because I'm just kind of saying that they're probably not returning next year. It's a super expensive country, and they've got a decent song, but if they're losing in the semifinal, well, they've got Serbia, but if they're losing in the semifinal, they're not qualifying, and then they're probably not returning next year. And yeah, anyways, I would also argue that Norway and Slovenia are also kind of big losers as well. Um, because especially Norway, they've got Sweden and Iceland that could vote for them, but they're also in the semi that has more countries in it. Well, actually, they don't. I don't know why I said that, but yeah, I would say Norway in general is a loser here because you just don't have as many countries that might vote for them, and also Slovenia. The only country that I could think of reasonably voting for them based on purely kind of geopolitical connections is Croatia, and even that really isn't particularly secure these days anyway. So I would say Norway and Slovenia are both pretty big losers. But I will point out one interesting thing is that San Marino and Ukraine are in the same semifinal. You know what that means? That means that if San Marino does choose Grisana to represent them with the song Kohani, this means that Ukraine could vote for San Marino, and we might even get San Marino through to the final. Who knows? But I will also note that a lot of the countries that are stereotypically put at second in the running order can't be put there anymore because of the draw. I'm talking about things like Malta, Albania, Czechia. People, the EBU really love putting them in the second slot in the semifinals. So it now becomes an interesting predicament as to who they're going to put there, if not these traditional filler countries like Albania and Malta. So I'll just, we just have to see what happens. But yeah, there's as usual, there are winners, there's losers, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter. Like, I would say for Finland, they don't have to worry at all. I'll be honest, they're going straight through to the final. And yeah, ultimately, some of these aren't as solid as they used to be, especially if we look at like Poland and Albania. These countries are traditionally very heavily diaspora based, but as 2024 has shown, that doesn't necessarily always have to be the case. If a song is bad, no one's going to vote for it, period. If a song is good, even unrelated countries will vote for it. And that's, I think, the main takeaway that you should take from this is that this doesn't actually matter that much, if I'm being honest. But yeah, we'll just have to see what happens. But these are the results of the allocation draw that took place just a few days ago, actually, as of recording this. Now, with all of that in mind, let's take a look at the current confirmed entries for Eurovision 2025. Now, honestly, it's not very different from when I last reported in December, but there are two new additions. But let's go through them in order. With Montenegro, of course, we have Nina Žižić with the song Dobrodošli. Not much news on that end, except Nina has been confirmed for Eurovision in Concert 2025. That's the pre-party that takes place in Amsterdam. So that's going to be very nice to have Montenegro back in the pre-party game after a few years of absence. After that, we have Albania, who are being represented by Shkodra Elektronika with the song Zirm. There's also not a lot of news there, but it's been confirmed that for the first time in many, many years, Zurm will not be getting a revamp for Eurovision. Now, usually songs get revamps for getting like an English form, or maybe they change the kind of instruments a little bit. But it's been confirmed that Zurm is not getting revamped for Eurovision, which is pretty fresh. So, yeah, that's very interesting for Albania, but otherwise, we don't have too much news coming from there. Um, Moving on to our first new entry, and that's Luxembourg, of course, with Laura Thorne with the song La Poupée Monte le Song. This won the national final, Luxembourg Song Contest, as I mentioned earlier. And after that, we have Austria, who will be represented by JJ with the song called Wasted Love. Now, this is interesting because JJ, full name, Johannes, I can't remember his surname, but he's actually a singer in an opera in Vienna, I believe. He's a countertenor, whatever that means. Contratenor, sorry. But his vocal range does go up to Nemo levels, so that's going to be interesting. And the song is described as a pop rock song, and is being written, or was written rather, by none other than Taya. So I think we've got a good song on our hands, but people are already being skeptical, saying that they're just trying to copy the winning formula, which I would say, knowing Taya, that's definitely not the case, but we'll just have to see what happens. I think the song is due for release in March or something like that, but this announcement only came this morning. 6 a.m. for European time. So, yeah, we don't know much else, but what we do know is that JJ and Taya are pretty good friends. We've seen, like, selfies of them together. I'm actually in a group chat, and where we follow a lot of activities of Taya and Selena, and yeah, JJ has been friends with Taya for quite a while now, and it's just been announced. This has been confirmed. So JJ, Johannes, I still can't remember his surname. I think it starts with G. Will be representing Austria with the song "Wasted Love." After that, we have Cyprus, who are being represented by Theo Evans. Not much news on the song itself, however, we did get the names of the songwriters. I think one of them is Joy Deb or Linnea Deb from Sweden, and another one is Dimitris Kontopoulos, yes, from the Dream Team, and then Elsie Bay. If you know me, you'll know that I'm in a group which has a pretty turbulent history with Elsie Bay. So when this came out, I just started making fun of Elsie Bay, or as we call her, Oopsie Bay. That she has so few gigs at this point and been alienated so much that she has to go to freaking Cyprus and go to work with the Dream Team to find a way to get to Eurovision, which is kind of pathetic if you ask me. But yes, those are the songwriters for Theo Evans' song for Eurovision 2025. Then we move on to Czechia, who are being represented by the Czech artist of Slovak origin, Adonis, who has been living and working for a long time in Prague, even though he actually comes from a northern part of Slovakia, I believe. But yeah, he was actually selected relatively early, I would say, and it's being hyped up a lot, and I'm actually hyped up a lot as well for his song, but I don't actually know when it's going to come out yet. But there are very high expectations surrounding this track, but we'll just have to see what happens. Finally, the current confirmed entries, we have Claude for the Netherlands, or Claude from the Netherlands. We don't have much news except like with Nina, we will also have Claudia for Eurovision in Concert as kind of the host entry as such. But yeah, those are the current confirmed entries. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I will mention one quote unquote country is planning to put in what is equivalent to 912,000 euros for promoting their 2025 entry, which is purportedly the most they ever put into promoting a Eurovision entry. Um, Although some people are disputing that because of what they had done this year, or rather in 2024, with all of the terrible pronunciations of languages in YouTube ads and stuff. But I don't really know. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So let's just move on. Now, here's something that I really wanted to cover, but I waited until this month for more stuff to go down before doing it. And in fact, I was originally going to record this on the 29th, which was yesterday for me, and I made the slides on 28th, but even on the 29th it had become outdated because one more withdrawal had happened. But look at all these countries with their different entries that were either withdrawn or disqualified. That's why I say this year is, instead of united by music, we're united by withdrawals. So we've got Montenegro, Albania, Lithuania, Malta, Croatia, Ukraine, Serbia, Croatia again, Serbia again, Greece, Poland, Lithuania, two from Norway that I already mentioned, four songs from Moldova. I've been told all of these are because the people arrived late, the artists arrived late. Well, except for a Blanche band who were actually sending in an AI generated song and are actually a kind of Eurovision news channel from Ukraine. But yeah, other than them, the other three were disqualified because they were late to the auditions. And then after all of that, Moldova just decided to completely withdraw. And of course, we had One Morning Left from Finland, and then another song from Serbia, which is a little bit confusing because the lead singer Milan Nikolic actually said that he was going to withdraw, but apparently the song is still in the lineup, which so we don't really know what's happening. Then we had Latvia because Greta actually reported that she was sick, she was ill, so she had to withdraw from Supernova. And then, most recently, we had a withdrawal from San Remo, of all things, because M. Killa was being investigated for things related to the mafia, of all things. So, yeah, just really crazy. A lot of, obviously there's many different reasons for these like withdrawals or disqualifications, but it's still crazy that just last year we barely had any at all, and this year we're like fast approaching 30, I believe, in here. Or even more if you count all of the different entries in Moldova. But yeah, there's just a lot of withdrawals and disqualifications going on. We really don't know why. Some people joked that Joost from the Netherlands kind of left a curse on 2025, and maybe that is what happened. But and some people said that it was every country trying to find their baby lasagna, but obviously that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, this is a big mess. Hopefully, this doesn't go on too much longer. One certain quote unquote country can withdraw themselves, but other than that, let's hope that the lineups remain relatively consistent from this point onwards. Alright, as usual, we've got some selection news, but this time, because so many national finals are already releasing their lineups and songs and such, this is mostly about internal selections, but we do have some national finals in here, starting with Armenia. As I mentioned in the last episode, we're going to return to the national final Depi Yevratil. But we haven't gotten any more details on that, except allegedly the entire participation list was leaked, and some of the artists have even confirmed it on their Instagrams. These include Afina Manukian, although she's collabing with some electro artist, I believe, for this song. And then we also have Saro Gevorgian, who I spent much of my 2022 season campaigning against because he's not only good friends with the Armenian delegation, but also very much pro-Russian, I believe. You're very much like associated with the Dream Team and such, and at the same time, he was befriending the Armenian delegation. I didn't want someone to be picked based off of just nepotism, effectively, and in the end, we got Rosalind, who is entirely unrelated. So, all's well that ends well, but Saro Gevorgian is back in the national final. Yes, I know technically it's pronounced Saro Gevorgian, but that sounds weird in English, so I'm not going to do it. But after that, after Saro, we also have Surbuk, who is returning to Eurovision, or at least attempting to return to Eurovision. So that's exciting. Let's just have to see. We'll just have to see what she has to offer this time around. But other than one alleged leak of the participation list, that has been confirmed by some of the artists. Other than that, we don't really have much news on Depi Yevratil, like where it's going to be held, how it's going to be held, how the voting system is going to work, etc. We'll just have to see what happens with that. So from there, let's move on to Australia, where some rumors are surrounding are gaining pace that we might have Guy Sebastian back as the representative for Australia 10 years after he last did it for Australia at the debut of the country in the contest. This is because he's been featured in several kind of Eurovision-related lineups in various kind of Eurovision events alongside actual Eurovision artists for some reason. So people are speculating that they might have internally selected Guy Sebastian again for the contest for Australia, but we'll just have to see what happens. This is becoming my catchphrase at this point. Moving on to Denmark, where we have had almost zero news, but there have been reports that, actually they did say that there's going to be a former winner in DMGP. I don't know what that refers to, whether it refers to the DMGP winner or winner of Eurovision, so it could be Emily de Forest again for all we know. But the rumor is that Tim Shu is going to be back in DMGP, but we'll just have to see if that comes to fruition. So let's move on to France, where I've gotten exactly one tip, that France are going to be going for an upbeat song this time, which isn't too surprising considering they sent a ballot last year, but that's really all we know about France. They're really secretive about their plans up until literally the day before the announcement. But that's France. Alright, news hot off the goddamn press. I was about to record the last segment of this video when I saw a tweet from ESC Discord saying that Le Parisien has reported that the French delegation have internally selected the singer Luan to represent France in Eurovision 2025. Now, I don't know anything about Luan, but a lot of people in the quote retweets and the responses and such are freaking out in a positive way, so I must assume that's good news. If you know anything about Luan, please let me know. But this is news that I literally got as I was recording this video. So this is pretty fresh news, and we'll have to see what she brings to the table if this rumor ends up being true.
Je me rappelle de toutes ces soirées, des paillettes dans mes yeux chaque année. On ne pouvait rater ça pour rien au monde. Tu me l'avais dit. Tu l'avais dit à Momo. On était à des années-lumière de s'imaginer que ce soit possible, mais t'en rêvais. Moi aussi j'en rêvais, de cette vie-là, de ce moment.
Toi, tu rêvais de m'y voir, maman.
Sans savoir que ça pourrait arriver un jour. Je suis sûre que t'es fière, que tu regardes de loin. Alors tu sais quoi? Je vais le faire pour nous. Je vais le faire pour nos rêves. Je vais représenter la France à l'Eurovision.
Moving on to Georgia, we have rumors that they might have selected Nini Iris to represent them. As usual, they're going for an internal selection this time instead of going for some sort of national final. But one possible name is Nini Iris, who actually, I believe, performed on America's Got Talent and was widely praised for her very strong voice. It's interesting though because nominally you would expect the broadcaster to select an artist who is generally supportive of the government, like we saw with 2024. But and especially more so now that the party has gone even more kind of pro-Russian and stuff like that. But Nini Iris is actually kind of anti-government, so one wonders what really happened there. Maybe it's kind of like a Malaysia situation, where obviously Malaysia also was not particularly pro-Putin, let's just say. But yeah, in Georgia we might have Nini Iris, and people are saying that because the Georgian broadcaster are following Nini Iris on Instagram, but some people also pointed out they've been following Nini Iris for quite some time now, so yeah, this might not be proof or anything. They might just announce someone completely random and probably pro-government at the end of the day. So from one internal selection, let's go to another, and that is, of course, the host country, Switzerland. The rumor is that we might have a female singer. In fact, there was a rumored shortlist of 2 from a while back, and both of them were female singers. So if that shortlist is to be believed, then that the representative this year will be a female singer. There are more news that I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but it's just some hints that one Swiss Eurofan has gotten, but we'll just have to see what happens. They haven't really talked about when they're going to announce the name. It might well be like March or something like that. We'll just have to see what they decide to do with their host entry. So finally, for 2024, 2025, I'm gonna go talk a little bit about Ukraine because previously I had assumed that the big favorite was Zifferblatt, and I feel like they are still one of the big favorites, but there is sort of a new contender on the scene, and that's Masha Kondratenko, which is interesting because she's singing a song in English, and you don't get a lot of songs in English from Ukraine. They tend to send songs in Ukrainian, but if they do send Masha Kondratenko, then we could well be getting an English song from Ukraine at Eurovision 2025. We'll just have to see what happens with that. For now, that's really all I've got because, again, a lot of the selections are already the lineups are already out for a lot of the selections, so there's less to talk about, and there will be less to talk about even for February. So yeah, that's really about it for 2025, but they did report recently that Germany will be switching from NDR, the current broadcaster, to SWR for 2026. Now, SWR is short for the Südwestrundfunk, and they have not done Eurovision in a long time. I believe actually since like the 1980s or something like that. But yeah, NDR has been doing Eurovision for the last 11 years or something like that. So they decided it's time for a change. And this year, essentially, they said that if they don't win, they're going to switch to Südwestrundfunk. And so some Eurovision media outlets have interpreted this to they definitely will switch to Südwestrundfunk after 2025. So yeah, that's some news from Germany right there, and we'll have to see whether their big ambitions come to any sort of fruition. The time has come to ask ourselves, what's next? Well, as of recording this segment, we are less than 3 hours away from the Greek national final beginning. Now, There's a few fan favorites, like I mentioned, like Evangelia, Claudia, and Barb's, but really I think it's just down to Claudia versus Evangelia. Um, but we have gotten some news on like the rehearsals, on how people sounded and looked. Well, it was reported that Claudia did not have a good stage show, but Evangelia had good vocals. And there was another song that wasn't a favorite, that was an upbeat song, which apparently surprised people by having a good stage show. So we'll have to find out what that was, but right now it's not looking particularly good for Claudia. We'll just have to see what happens. I personally predict that Evangelia will win, but future Rigel in the editing room will let me know if that's the case. And then after that, 2 days later, this Saturday, we will have the first heat of Melody Festivalen. We've actually already got some rehearsal photos today. And there's a few where John Lundvik, or Jan Lundvik, if you will, he's got a big disco ball, almost similar to disco from LPS from Slovenia. So yeah, that's interesting. But there's also other songs, obviously. But yeah, this Saturday we will have the first heat of Melody Festivalen and also the fourth semifinal of Eurovision Daškas LT, which, like I mentioned, will have the band Katarsis with the song Tavo Akis. So that's one to look out for, I would say, in Lithuania. And then we will have the Supernova semifinal, where we will have 20 artists, yes, 20 artists in one semifinal, and half of them are going to proceed to the finals. So that's going to be interesting. Sorry, not 20, 19, because Greta withdrew. So yeah, 19 artists fighting for 10 spots in the final. So as usual, cutthroat AF. But then after that, we will have 3 artists being selected this weekend. We will have EMA from Slovenia. It has a really weird voting system where the first round is jury only. Yes, first round jury only. And then the top 2 from the jury will go on to a televote only super final. Now, I'm really, really confused about that, but just a few minutes ago, I kind of had this epiphany. Because I mentioned in the previous episode that the favorites, or the most likely to win, are Clayman and July Jones. And I suspect what they might try to do is keep Clayman out of the final, out of the super final, and have July Jones and some other no-hoper be up there in the top 2. So, and then pray that the Slovenian public aren't stupid enough to go for the no-hoper. So that's my theory. I think they really want July Jones to go to Eurovision, but to do that, they would have to get rid of Clayman, and they don't want to do that by just... and they're not confident enough to have both Clayman and July Jones in the top 2 and trust people to vote for July Jones, so they might try to eliminate Clayman in the first round instead, and maybe have him come third or something like that, but in any case, not enough to get into the super final. So maybe that's what they're doing, but that's just my theory. We'll just have to see how the results land on the night. And the next selection on the 1st of February is the Euro song from Belgium. So, like I mentioned, the 2 big ones that people are talking about are Red Sebastian and Montisa, and they also released the running order for the national final, and I believe Red Sebastian is 7th out of 8, by the way, whereas Montisa is 4th. So right now the odds are looking a lot more in favor of Red Sebastian, but we'll have to see whether that comes to be the case, basically. And the final selection on the 1st of February, yes, that's 3 Eurovision songs in one night, is Benidorm Fest, because if I remember correctly, we are having the second semifinal of Benidorm Fest tonight as well, as of recording this. Again, I don't have any massive favorites, but the final will be taking place on Saturday. As usual, because it's Spain, it's going to be very late, so I would suggest just not staying up to watch it. I didn't even watch the first semifinal, if I'm being honest, but yeah. That's Benidorm Fest. I would say it's a lot more interesting now to consider because the big favorite has quote unquote flopped, and we'll just have to see whether La Chispa will be able to recover the position of favorite for the final. We'll just have to see if like other contestants will be able to overtake her in terms of a more generally appealing package. We'll just have to see what happens, and then. After that, we got some news from Azerbaijan for once, who said, I think their head of delegation or something like that said that the artist will be revealed in the first 10 days of February. So for once, the reveal of the artist from Azerbaijan is not going to be like sort of late March, kind of racing with Armenia to be the latest one to reveal, but it's going to be relatively early, and the song of course will come later, but the artist is supposed to be revealed during the first 10 days of February. And then after that, we will have Eurosong again, but this time from Ireland, which is going to be on the 7th of February. I've already talked about kind of the conditions there. The big favorites, I would say, are Bobby Arlo and also Railta. But there are some other pretty competent songs in there as well. For some reason, Emmy from MGP, Witchwoods, the 2021 or something like that, is in Eurosong for some reason. So there's that. But overall, I would say it's still between Bobby Arlo and Railta. We'll just have to see how the Irish audience votes on the night. I wouldn't say there's a clear favorite right now, but in general, like I mentioned earlier, the standard of the Irish national final is actually relatively high compared to most national finals this season, which is a nice change of pace. And since this series is called Rigel's Random Reports, I don't know when my next episode is going to be, so I might as well cover mid to late February as well, in case I don't end up making another video for the entirety of February. But, so yeah, let's get into it. Firstly, on the 8th, of February, we will have the first semifinal of Söngvakeppnin. We will also have the final of Vidbeer, UMK, Supernova, and MESC. So that's 4 songs in one weekend. And then starting on the 11th, we will have San Remo for Italy, of course. And then on the 14th, we will have the Polish national final. The day after that, we will have the final of San Remo. We will also have Estilal, MGP, and Eurovisia Dashkes LT. So once again, 4 songs in one weekend. I guess if you're counting the 14th as a weekend as well, then that's 5 songs in one weekend. And then on the 22nd, we will have the final of Söngvakeppnin and also the first semifinal for Festival da Cancel. And then 3 days later, we will have the first semifinal of Pesma Eurovision, and then 2 days after that, we will have the first semifinal of Dora. Now, I'm only reporting on the first semifinals of these because I just frankly don't have the space to report on all of them, and I think it's more important to know when these national finals start. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff, as usual, really, going on in February for Eurovision selections. So hopefully your favorites win and my favorites can win as well, but we'll just have to see what happens. And that is going to do it for this episode of Rigel's Random Reports. As usual, I hope I didn't ramble on too much and this video isn't too long, but it's probably going to end up like an hour long or something anyways, because that's just how I am. But yeah, like I said earlier, I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully more interesting videos will come of this channel. I still haven't gone around to editing my vlogs from last year, and I'll eventually have to get around to doing them hopefully soon. I'll just have to see what happens. It really depends on like my mood, my motivation, so on and so forth. Sometimes I have motivation to do something for 45 minutes and then give up. I have times where I have motivation for about 4 seconds and then I give up. So it's all kind of wishy washy at the moment. Plus, I have my project that some people started in August, but it's now almost February and I haven't done a single thing. So yeah, I've got to work on that as well for my university. So yeah, it just depends really. I'm not sure if I can maintain any sort of regular upload schedule, but we'll have to see what happens. Just based on my mood and motivation and stuff like that. I don't know why I'm rambling about this stuff, but yeah, that is gonna do it for the news of basically January 2025 for Eurovision 2025, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Like this video if you did. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming episodes of Rigel's Random Reports. And I'll see you next time.